What is up, everyone? Anthony of the Dead here, and we have a special interview for you tonight. R.A. Mihailoff. What can I say? Stand-up guy. This interview was really insightful, and he was just really down to earth. I mean, he wasn't even really strapped for time. I wasn't either, so we were just kind of going and talking about how he started with his endeavors as far as acting and trying to wrestle and trying to make it as a starving actor and trying to kind of come up the ranks a bit. And this was a great discussion, and he surprised me, and you're gonna have to wait to the end of the interview. The back end of the interview actually surprised me of a director coming on of a specific film that it kind of involves Leatherface. Yes, it was actually really cool. And he didn't have to do that. He was like, yeah, I actually got a surprise for you. Bam, put him on the phone. They're actually right next to each other. So it was a lot of fun. And it was cool to be able to have a great chat with these guys. And definitely going to keep in touch, because if he does any other projects, we're going to talk about it here on the show and have him back on again. And he even mentioned in the interview, you'll hear him, he had a blast, he had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. So really humble guy. I hope I see him out at some horror convention soon. I know he said he's done Monster Mania before, so hopefully he comes and he does some Monster Mania in Cherry Hill in March or August, hopefully he gets booked for that. Because I always like, interview. I've talked to CJ after interviewing him. I've talked to certain people after interviewing him, and it's always been cool to like catch up and talk. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember," and they genuinely do. A lot of times they say they do, and they really don't, but they do for the most part. What a stand-up guy. So this interview, if you're a fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, if you're a fan of Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre III, which I am, I grew up, watching. This is one of the ones I rented the most, I think, out of all of the films. Everything between, getting the video, but actually watching it and having those memories linked onto it. But I didn't ask him completely about Leatherface. There's a lot more to this guy than just Leatherface. And I think that's what I wanted to kind of capture here. And of course, he talked about how he got in touch with the director, and with Jeff Burr, the connection between, meeting someone at a film school or meeting someone, a starving filmmaker, all these stories are very inspiring. And I think it's important for, everyone else to kind of hear them and enjoy it. So here we go. This is the interview with R.A. Mihailoff. Before you started acting or getting into wrestling or any kind of pretty much anything, was there a pivotal moment for you when starting out? Was there maybe a specific film or a time in your life to where you're just kind of like, I want to do that for the rest of my life, or I actually want to take this on for a career?
Well, now that's an excellent question, and I have a kind of like a two-part answer.
Sure.
I think the defining moment, it wasn't exactly a bolt of lightning, but it was a long-term thing.
Sure.
when I was a kid, I read Famous Monsters of Filmland, and I would think, I would fantasize about how do you get to play the Frankenstein monster? How do you get to play the Wolfman? Oh, I wanted to do it, like instinctually or something. I don't know. Of course, as a dumb little kid, I had no idea,
Yeah.
But that was something I wanted to do from the time I was a kid. I wanted to play those characters. I don't even know if I was really cognizant of the fact that, they were characters being played. You know what I mean? I guess I did because I was reading Famous Monsters of Filmland, so I knew it was movie monsters. And I just wanted to be one, And I think maybe even going further back, when I was a little kid, back in the old days when there was only 3 channels on the TV and the 19-inch black and white TV, all the old shows would come on, like, oh, Christ, you name it, Davy Crockett. Well, I would have my Davy Crockett buckskins and coonskin cap and flintlock, and I'd help Davy Crockett on the episode. Then Knights of the Round Table would come on, and I'd get my helmet and my sword and my shield and help those guys. And then Zorro would come. I was very fortunate. My parents, bought me really cool stuff. I had a Zorro, I had all these sets. I had a Zorro set, and I'd, get dressed up like Zorro. And Robin Hood, all this stuff, man. And, that must have been the germination of the idea or something like that. I always just dug it, man. And then, like I said, as I started, reading Famous Monsters of Filmland and stuff like that, I developed a deeper interest in actually playing the characters. And then as I got older and found out you could actually, that acting was actually a profession. I guess maybe I knew that, but it didn't, it didn't solidify in my brain, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then probably around high school time, late high school is when I realized that I could, if I wanted to, go to college and study acting and see what happened from there. So those were the high points, to use a wrestling term. Those were the high spots of my evolution as a actor.
And like was and even with that being kind of like the seed that was planted early on, was there also a passion for wrestling as well? Because I feel like there's both of those things are, you have to have a real passion for it. It seems like, especially like going forward and being in shape or dedication for a role. So was that also something that was planted at an early age, or was that kind of like found along the way?
That was sort of found along the way, but I'll tell you, before I started acting full time, I used to work on the railroad, and even further back on that 19-inch black and white TV with my grandfather, we watched wrestling every week. Every week we watched it, man. And so I thought it was interesting and stuff like that. And then in the late 60s, early 70s, it went into the studio wrestling, and it was kind of hokey and stuff like that. But I was working on the railroad, and I had a foreman, and he and I've always been big and brawny, and I had really long hair and a really long beard, and he would go, "God damn it, R.A., why are you working on this goddamn railroad? Why don't you quit and become a professional wrestler?" And I didn't want any part of it, because I was starting to have my renaissance as a would-be actor, So I had loftier goals. I thought about going to Juilliard. Had no idea how I was going to get in or pay for it or anything like that, but I still had that in the back of my mind. Yes, become a Juilliard-trained actor, or maybe get an MFA from Yale School of Drama. To be or not to be, that is the question. Anyway, I didn't want any part of the wrestling, really, But in that same time period, in a bar room in Toledo, across from the station, that's kind of a reference to that Kenny Rogers song. In a bar room in Toledo, across from. This is actually a Holiday Inn bar in Toledo, Ohio. I was on a road trip. I was on a road trip with a friend of mine, and we were goofing around in Toledo, Ohio. We were on our way to see some chicks at the Beloit College in Wisconsin, but we detoured, And anyway, I saw the Great Kabuki setting at the bar. And I don't know if you know who the Great Kabuki is.
I have definitely heard of them in the wrestling world, right?
Yeah. He was Kabuki. Kabuki, as in the Japanese performance tradition, they do the white face and stuff like that. He did this in wrestling, but I recognized him without his face paint. And I went over and started talking to him. And by the end of the evening, he had offered to help me break into pro wrestling.
Wow.
There's only one problem. He was in Toledo, Ohio. I was in northwestern Pennsylvania, and I couldn't figure out how to keep making that big railroad money and train with the Great Kabuki in Toledo, Ohio. So I let that opportunity pass. So anyway, saved my money, quit the railroad, went to acting school, did a bunch of regional theater for several seasons, and then moved out to Hollywood. And it was a bitter struggle for many years. But one thing I remembered, there used to be a magazine. I don't know if you're old enough to remember. There used to be two coffee table magazines. One was called Look, and one was called Life. They were big, like Christ, 10 by 12, full color, full photo magazines. Mm-hmm. And I read an article in one of those magazines, I can't remember which, but they're very similar, that a lot of very successful directors came out of the University of Southern California Film School. George Lucas did a student film at USC. It was called THX 1138. Started as a student film, and it was so good that people invested in it and made it a feature film. And he hired some actor. I don't know whatever happened to him. His name was Robert Duvall. I don't know. So there's
something happened.
Well, so here's the deal. That crystallized in my mind that maybe if I went down and did enough student films at USC, I could perhaps meet a next generation Spielberg and get in the groundwork.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it actually paid off. It actually paid off 4 times. The biggest payoff was one of the student filmmakers I met, Jeff Burr, got hired to do Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 3. And he actually offered the part to Gunnar first, which, is right. Jeff has a great reverence. Jeff has a great reverence for our industry, a great respect. And so he made an offer to Gunnar. Unfortunately for Gunnar, fortunately for me, Gunnar was unable to successfully negotiate a deal that made him and New Line happy. So that left the role open, and I was like literally, and I'm not using it as the trendy jargon. I mean literally, I was the next logical choice for Jeff to hire in the role. Mm-hmm. And he did. It worked out. So
yeah, it's like it fell into place at that point in time. And I think at that point the inner kid inside you was just like, oh wow, I get to play, one of a horror icon, like someone that goes like, I mean, the era of, Jason, Freddy, Leatherface, Michael Myers, I mean, that's implanted there forever. I feel like as the generation shift from the Universal monsters to now, I feel like that must have been a dream come true at that point in time.
And it's interesting you make that comparison to the Universal monsters to the modern guys, and I've always felt that way. I've always felt that Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, Leatherface, Pinhead are the modern equivalent of Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, Creature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah. But let's jump back a minute. Let's go back to wrestling, because they're all, it's like otters swimming or something like that. They're darting around, dashing around. So one of the first breaks I had when I was in Hollywood, I got hired to do an A-Team live action show at Universal Studios. Okay. I thought that would be a gateway to stardom on the Universal lot every day, doing stunts and action and stuff like that. How wrong I was. It's like two different businesses. The Universal Tour has almost nothing. The shows at Universal Tour have almost nothing to do with the workings of the lower lot. But anyway, I made really good money, which, was very helpful. When you're in show business, it's nice to have a little cushion to fall back on.
Yeah, to be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was very comfortable doing that show. But one weekend, I guess, they brought in, at the time it was still WWF, they brought a bunch of WWF wrestlers. Big John Studd, Hillbilly Jim, Women's Champion Wendy Richter, and as me and Jesse Ventura like to call him, Chico Santana. Tito Santana.
Yeah.
And so I had to go, boom, right over in between my shows, I was over hanging out with them. And I ran into Captain Lou Albano backstage. And I said, now this is 10 years after meeting the great Kabuki. So I was in my early 20s. Now I'm in my early 30s. Captain Lou, if a fellow wanted to get into this wrestling business, what would he have to do? Captain Lou looked up at me. He goes, "How old are you?" I said, 33. He paused for a minute and he went, "That's not too old. Did you meet Red Bastien?" I said, "No, who's Red Bastien?" "Well, he's the West Coast representative of Titan Sports, the parent company of WWF, and he's opening a wrestling school here in Los Angeles. Here's his card. Call him." Wow. So I met with Red Bastien. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this story. It didn't work out. I thought by going to Red Bastien's wrestling school that was like an automatic greasing the chute. You know what I mean? I thought by training with him, it was like an automatic entree into the big time. But no. It was simply. You had to, even by training with him, you had to spend time getting seasoned, in for lack of a better term, like the farm leagues. You know what I mean? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it at the time, but in retrospect, even an Olympic gold medal wrestler like Kurt Angle, he did not walk into Madison Square Garden for an event and start wrestling, okay? He spent 2 years in a farm team. It's called the Ohio Valley Wrestling, and it basically was WWF training, minor leagues, I guess you might call it.
Sure.
So I didn't understand that, and so I walked away from that opportunity too. But
I mean, it seems like things happen for some things happen for a reason in a specific order. It's kind of life's kind of funny that way sometimes,
Yeah, but then I did a couple. I've done commercials and stuff like that where I played wrestler. Well, I'm not really a wrestler, but I play one on TV. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's kind of like all intertwined, mixed and matched back and forth,
Yeah, so it's like a balance between, both the stuff you love. But it's interesting because it's like you still as you said, certain things happen along the way. And I think it's interesting for listeners out there too, where sometimes, there might be things that come along the way, and even though they might not work out, there's still motivation and fuel to keep that drive of like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I want to do because I just love doing it. It's kind of like it is a balance at the end of the day, especially, with Hollywood too, and the risks that a lot of people have to take, for whether it's like a starving actor or, someone trying to get a film, made in general. It seems, especially nowadays, I mean, it's really like near impossible. It seems that way. It's not that it is, but it seems like it has changed drastically over, back when, before, more internet stuff happening and people were able to kind of make anything at that point. And I think it definitely also is a change of timing as well.
Right, and tax advantages and all kinds of different stuff. But on the plus side, at least we have multiple platforms now. I mean,
yes, yeah. It's like technology. It's like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it's like you're able to. We have certain. I think personally, and I talk to people about it a lot, but even like the streaming platforms where things can go for shows on Amazon or shows on Netflix and different stuff where people can actually. Even small time actors can get these, gigs on certain platforms like that and also sustain, a living on that. But it's a better way of like getting content directly to people. So I think sometimes like that, it's more of like an advantage where there's more outlets now because there's more demand. I mean, the fact like there's so much money now in like Netflix and the backing and the amount of money they're paying those actors on like those original shows, or even like Amazon, for example. I mean, stuff like that. I think it's also for filmmakers, and that's what I'm involved in too. Is like I'm trying to be a filmmaker and write and get stuff out there. But I think as people get older and maybe they get involved in it, I think that line of work and getting the grind, as they say, getting that out there, I think there's more platforms more than ever to really try to display it. And obviously YouTube's a big one, but there's certain stuff like that where there's ways for people to kind of break through within the oversaturation of the market, if you will.
And that's very good for not only young filmmakers, but people have been around forever. I personally have not been able to tap that market. I think it's due to my lack of savvy with social media and internet and all that stuff. But
yeah, it's like it's weird. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like you have to have it to stay connected so people know what you're doing, but at the same time, like it can get a little like the whole social media thing can get a little like out of hand sometimes with certain people, and it's kind of like a dark section of the internet. But it's also like you said, it's like it's to plug stuff too, because a lot of people they plug stuff on Instagram or Twitter or certain films that they're doing. Have you reached out and done like any horror conventions? Do you like sign? Do you see that appreciation for the fans and that light? Even if people can't always find you on the interwebs.
Oh yeah, I do. I do conventions all the time, as often as I can. I love doing them.
Yeah, that must be great to see like people, because especially I always think that Leatherface, is an underrated sequel, and it defines the. I mean, ever since when I remember it was on one of the horror, the video store, and it was that cover is so iconic. I remember seeing that in the video store, but I also remember seeing the trailer. And the trailer for 3, that was always with you sitting by like the lake, and it's kind of like the Friday the 13th Part 8 trailer, but I always loved like the whole like turnaround, and that always scared me when I was a kid. So you definitely were in my nightmares for a good while when I was growing up before watching the film. But I always was attracted to that kind of horror. It was always just like, again, going to the video store and renting that and now it's like I'm sure you meet generations of fans where it's like like little kids that watch the horror stuff, and that's like dedication. I mean, I always talk about it with guests on the show here, but there's really no other fans like horror fans, and even wrestling fans. I feel like wrestling and horror fans are so like dedicated. It's such like a different, like, welcoming, like a family. You know what I mean? It's like you can always see the passion. They got the collections. They got, you know, the you know, the, I don't know, the soundtrack or something. Like, they got like the crazy little things right like that. And I'm sure it's cool to meet a bunch of people, because I work at Monster Mania, the convention, the horror convention in Jersey. And I'm able to see a bunch of fans come up to, you know, certain actors, even if it's Kane Hodder, for example, and just be so like grateful that they're able to meet them. And that experience really is like the more tangible thing, because that experience, that them going to the convention and getting their favorite item signed, you know, I feel like that's something where that's always going to live on. And that's cool that you're able to actually see that experience from fans that love all the work that you do.
Yeah, and you're right. The horror fans and wrestling fans as well are some of the most passionate fans in the world. You know, people that do haunted houses. Most of the people work for little or no money, but they're there They're there from the opening moment of the evening till the close at night. I mean, they are dedicated people as well. Now, speaking of wrestling fans and horror fans, I want to tap that market. I want to do a movie. I want to do a movie where the killer is a masked professional wrestler.
Ooh, look at that! There you go.
Yeah.
That's a pitch right there.
Yeah, well, I've got the rights to a book.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to say more about it until there's a little bit more development, but it's something.
Yeah. No, I know. Like the WWE film, the production company. I know that they tapped into horror films before, you know, so that's something that might not be far off from, like, they have, like, someone like that has, like, you know, they can do like See No Evil with Kane, for example. You know, or do a sequel years later. Or I think they produced Oculus. They produced a couple different things that didn't even have any wrestlers in them, and they were still actually pretty decent. You know, they had a decent budget to them. So that would be a great concept.
Yeah, it would. It's a pretty cool story too. I'll be a little bit more forthcoming when there's more development.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With that and taking that, you know, that slice of that market with horror, I know that I read up on the fact that you are into ghost hunting and paranormal stuff. Are you still involved in that, or and have you had any like crazy paranormal experiences or anything like that you would like to share? Or
yeah, well, the answer to your question, am I still involved in it? Yes. Kane, the aforementioned Kane Hodder, our good friend stuntman Rick McCullum, and myself are the core members of a group called Hollywood Ghost Hunters. We actually just, speaking of cons, we made our second ever appearance together at a convention in Lexington at the beginning of October, a convention called Scarefest, one of my favorite conventions.
Oh, yeah.
Monster Mania is one of my favorite too. I hope I can go this year.
Yeah. We got in March and in August we do the Cherry Hill and Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and then in the fall there's the Maryland Hunt Valley one. So there's 3 different Monster Manias this year, and I think Kane's going to be there again. CJ, yeah. I think so.
Yep. Wait a minute. There's Cherry Hill is in March, right?
Cherry Hill's in March, and then in August it's also Cherry Hill. So they have another Jersey show. So there's 2 shows.
Oh, okay.
And I think I'm pretty sure they're still booking stuff for March, August. Same thing with August, and then in the fall, I think it's like September, October is when the Hunt Valley, Maryland show is. So it's kind of like a sorted of dates. But yeah, man, I mean, I love Monster Mania. They always have great people coming there, and it's always fun working them for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess, I would like to go to the one that Kane and CJ are going to this March. So I better get a hold of Dave Hagen, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave is the man, and
Yep.
the that's the thing. It's you know, even with the paranormal stuff, I think that's another untapped thing as well, because that's something that people find so fascinating with that. And I don't even think a lot of people know that, like, if like certain like people like Can Hodder, they probably don't know off the top of their heads that they're involved in something like that. But I feel like that's really fascinating to go that like ghost hunting route, because I've always find it fascinating, like paranormal experiences. I've never had anything personally happen to me, but I definitely believe that there's certain things like that are around, and I think it's very fascinating to hear like other people, especially people in the industry, that explore those ideas, because sometimes some people might look at it as like, oh, that's just like whatever, but that's very fascinating that you're part of that group. And like, have you guys all experienced paranormal stuff together, or was it more of like an individual thing, or you guys have just enjoy like going to certain places or seeing certain things that have a history to them?
I fall in the last category. I have never had
Okay.
a paranormal experience, but I do. What I like about it is I get to go places. You know,
Yeah,
I,
travel.
yeah, well, yeah, I got to go to. It's not the Sharon Tate house anymore, but it's the house right down the street. You know, if I hadn't been a part of Hollywood Ghost Hunters, I would have never. It's actually called the Omen House, and owned by Dave Omen, and he claims that once they raised the property of the original murders, that all the disembodied spirits took up residence in his house. So I've got to go there on several occasions. Never would have gotten to do that. I went to. Have you ever heard of Tala, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum?
I actually have not.
It's in Weston, West Virginia, and
Oh, okay.
I got to go there, and as they until 1997, I think it was 97. It was an actual, and that's the real name of it, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and it was actually
Wow.
in operation until late 90s, like 96 or 97, and it has the distinction of being the second largest grouping of buildings after the Kremlin in the world.
Phew.
It's
And that's like, and is it abandoned now? Is it like one of those things where
yeah,
it's
kind of abandoned, but the people that own it are trying to restore it. It's I think it's been a while since I've been there, but if I recall correctly, it's 11 four-story buildings. Each building is almost a quarter-mile long, and it's on 300 acres. It's just huge, huge. And I got to go. They started a haunted walkthrough attraction, and they booked me for an appearance there. And as part of my appearance, I agreed to do a ghost hunt. And this is kind of cool experience. So the way they set it up, I mean, they divided all the people that wanted to go on the ghost hunt into small groups, 10, 12 people in a group.
okay?
I couldn't go with every group because I would cheat other people, other groups if I went with one group. Anyway, so they decided they would put me in one spot, and as the groups came through, I would interact with them, and that worked out pretty good. So they set me outside the morgue, the oldest building in the collection, that dates back 150 years to the Civil War. So,
Wow.
but the problem was I forgot. I forgot I was supposed to go ghost hunting. So after my appearance, which was late at night, I go on a ghost hunt with no equipment, no flashlight, nothing. I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm hungry. I sat in a folding metal chair all night long, and well, I was on the edge of being miserable. Can I just say that?
Sure.
But did I hear things? Oh, you bet I did. I heard all kinds of noise. But like I said, it's a 150-year-old building. What do you expect?
Yeah, you're gonna there's so much like rich like history to that alone. That's like the oldest building. It's gonna have you're gonna hear some stuff like that's fascinating.
I heard creaking, wind rattling in the rafters and stuff like that. But something happened, and our group, Hollywood Ghost Hunters, because it's made up of stuntmen and horror movie actors, our motto is, if you run, you're done. Okay?
I like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, because, I guess some group has a quote, dude, run! We're the opposite. So it was shortly after we formed Hollywood Ghost Hunters. So I'm sitting there in the dark, all alone, and I swear to God, and I do not make this up, I heard this. Ooh, 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 just like in a Hollywood ghost movie.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I'm sitting there all alone. I'm cold. I'm tired. I'm hungry. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I said, no. First of all, I didn't believe what I was hearing at first, and then, it got louder and louder, and I went, oh Jesus! I said, well, the motto of Hollywood Ghost Hunters is, if you run, you're done. If I ran out of there panicking like a little schoolgirl, I was done. I was out of Hollywood Ghost Hunters. So I decided I had to stay there and, take whatever was coming my way,
Process what was happening in that moment.
I got to stay there, man, and David Roden had said something very profound that allied a little bit of my fear. When we were at his house, we were in his master bedroom, and there had been quite a bit of activity, and somebody had asked him, we were debriefing in his master bedroom, and somebody said, well, David, aren't you afraid of all these spirits around you? And he said, no, you have more to fear from the living than the dead. Okay, so using that as my life preserver, or whatever you want to call it, I figured whatever happens what is it going to do? It's probably not going to kill me. It might be terribly frightening. I might come out with white hair, and babbling, but I'm not going to get killed.
Yeah.
So I stayed there. I held my ground, and then something strange, even stranger, happened. The ooh. Oh, and by the way, and I also knew there were other people in the building. Maybe if I'd gone in there alone and not known that there were other people in the building, it may have panicked me. Okay, but I knew there were other people in the building and things like that. And after a while, that oohing kind of subsided and kind of turned into intelligible speaking. It was the unique acoustics of those quarter-mile long buildings. It was the echoing of people talking.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it was from the other groups of people that were in the building.
Yes.
Wow.
But I swear it sounded, a sound mixing artist could have used that recording for a 13th Ghost movie or whatever.
Yeah, because at the time you're not thinking, oh, it's the voices echoing. You're just like, what is that? what is making that noise?
And it was pun not intended, but sort of. It was dead on perfect. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was my most, I think, unusual or excitable moment of ghost hunting. For for the record, I am a non-believer. So I will say this: as a non-believer, if I do see what I consider incontrovertible evidence, I'll be the first to admit it, and I will admit it if I ever encounter it. If I ever encounter it, but to this date, I haven't encountered it. When people tell me their paranormal experiences, I believe them. I have no reason not to believe them. I believe what I believe. They believe what they are telling me.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's essentially like until you experience it yourself, you just really don't have a say until
I can't.
You see something.
Yeah. I'm not from Missouri, but show me.
Yeah. No, that's like one of those things where, yeah, because it happens to it seems to happen to certain people, and they'll say it, and like you said, you could just tell when they're saying it, they believe it, because sometimes it's very scary. Same thing with like any kind of like weird Area 51 stuff. That's a whole rabbit hole of stuff that you can like go down. It's so weird. And it's, again, one of those things where it's like, until you see it, it's all like, especially with the internet, people blow things out of proportion. But that's very fascinating though. Hopefully one day, there'll be some kind of like, Hollywood ghost hunting show. Maybe we get some kind of like, that'd be cool if we get some kind of like Amazon Instant or Netflix series or something like that. Because that's I think like the whole like going to locations, it's been done before, but I feel like if you were to do it with actual people that are involved in horror, I think that's like I think people would watch that.
Well, it blows my mind why we don't have our own show. We've always been angling for our own show,
Yeah, and now with those platforms we talked about earlier, I feel like, there might be some room, to maybe shoot like a pilot or something and air it on Hulu or something, you know what I mean? People are paying for these subscriptions, and if they see like, oh wow, like, because like if you make it exclusive, a lot of the times that really draws people in, like, oh well, this is if a horror fan has Netflix or Hulu and they hear about it, they're going to watch it, and there's a lot of horror fans that stream and do all this stuff because a lot of independent films or certain stuff they're into is on there. So that's definitely something that should be done eventually.
Well, I'll tell you, come on, Kane Hodder, R.A. Mihailoff, and Rick McCullum. Between these three men, they have portrayed virtually every kind of mutant, monster, and madman on the cinema. Now, they go into the field to investigate those phenomenon or something like that,
Yeah, look at that. See, that's already a pitch for the intro of the show. Like that, you just got to write that down and keep it. Yeah, and just be like, yo, Kane, I came up with this crazy intro line, and it's just like that's the thing. It's like all it takes is a couple creative minds and some good ideas, and then it's like all the dominoes kind of fall into place, something like that. And I always love like ghost hunting or ghost exploring shows. Some of them obviously are a little over the top and like very obviously not not believable, but I always enjoy the whole like the atmosphere and the cinematography of like a place that just has a lot of weird or bad history. It's like a sense of dread that's just there from the get-go. And like you guys already enjoyed traveling, so it's just like getting some cameras out there and getting some like especially now with these like GoPros and all these, like you can get all some cool different shots for like a reasonable budget, with some of these cameras, and they're shooting in 4K, the streaming's in 4K. It's like that could be done in no time, man. That'd be an awesome idea.
Well, it's something we're all going to have to look into.
Yeah. Well, before we go, do you have anything you currently want to plug? Is there any projects that you've worked on, or any place where anyone can find you? Do you have a website or anything, or are you completely off the grid?
Oh, if you want to find me, I'm on Facebook.
Okay, you got the Facebook going.
Yeah. I just finished a movie called Ride Hard, Live Free. It's a biker movie set 50 years in the future.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we used members of 3, honest to God, motorcycle clubs in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. And are we pressed for time?
No, we're not.
Well, I have a little surprise for you.
All right, sure.
Sitting right across the room from me is Leatherface director Jeff Burr. Would you like to say hi to him?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to hand the phone to him and let you guys yak for a minute.
All right, cool.
Hello.
How's it going, Jeff? Anthony here.
Hey, it's going to go well. Hey, I didn't want to jump in your join the parade, but I just had to deliver RA some stuff. He was here for a convention, and in my hometown, as a matter of fact. So.
Oh, awesome! That's awesome to hear.
So we hooked up, and we'll probably have a nice dinner tonight, and we'll figure out what's what. Catch up.
Oh, there you
go. Anyway,
yeah, that's.
But are you a filmmaker?
Yeah, I'm a younger guy, is just trying to, try to make something happen, Don't know if I want to. I'm kind of in a cross between whether or not I can portray film school, or if I'm just been really grinding to just kind of make my own stuff, and I'm on YouTube and whatnot, just try to get out there, So that's kind of my situation.
Okay, but you've made some short films or already?
Yeah,
or what?
yeah.
So
I've just done some.
What's the channel on YouTube, or how can I say?
The channel that I got on YouTube, again, it's called Gun Wars Productions, GUNWARS Productions, just kind of like an old inside joke name. Yeah, we have we're still barely to no budget, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I'm really trying to push it to certain things. We've done some comedy stuff. We've done some horror. I'm working on a, mini horror short right now that I'm really trying to make the best I can with a little bit more of a budget. Yeah. And then I do some stuff on YouTube with gaming as well. Do some podcasts. So I kind of try to have some room in creative, doing a little bit here and there, trying to go around and get different, different experiences with editing and writing and getting some advice from everyone.
Keep writing. That's the best. I think it's the best entree into a professional situation is having a project, a script, whatever that someone wants to make, and then so that's really writing is really the best entry, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And then also making your own stuff too. So that just keep up with it, and that's and the more you make, the better you get, and so don't feel you have to go to film school at all. These days,
I know that's the main thing, man. It's and especially because around here I'm in South Jersey, so the closest outlet here would be Philly. You know what I mean? So Philadelphia has a couple film trade schools and whatnot, and I think that would be a good idea if I wanted to really work with creative people, because in my opinion, I don't think sitting around in a classroom at a community college is going to do me any good, and just putting myself in debt to oh, you got to take, algebra, or you got to take all these classes to get to a film class for it to count. That just, to me, that doesn't seem logical in my head. I would like to work hands-on, and that in a studio, and that's what the trade school would offer. But it's just a lot of money, because of course, it always comes down to that. You need to go in debt at this point to get something, but the
advantage of going to a film school or a trade school, whatever, is the people you meet, and
exactly.
That's the main thing, and you will find. I mean, RA and myself, a good example of it. RA, the reason I got to know him. Okay. Well, then you know that, but I'm saying that who you meet in film school, potentially, you might find people you work with the rest of your creative life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Beyond the obvious advantage of of learning, the relationship.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm really happy that I was able to hear that from you guys, because it's cool. That's why I like talking to everyone and trying to master, what I can for doing interviews and getting to know everything about, certain films that I've loved growing up. Leatherface being, one of I was talking to him earlier about how I remember just seeing the iconic cover, you know, in the video store, and that, you know, and I want to thank you for several nightmares throughout the years.
Yeah, well, we did. You had I heard that you had the image of the trailer when the figure turns around, and you were so right.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of too, in terms of the Friday the 13th 8. It's the exact same trailer, basically.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the exact same idea of the trailer, you know.
Yeah, that was like
thing.
Yeah, no,
But,
I love it, and it's like short and sweet, and it's like, you know, it's like in my opinion, it was like you know, it's just, this is Leatherface. Like there didn't have to be like a trailer that showed you clips. It was just like, this is it.
Well, but and I'm about to mention, that's a funny thing, because that was the teaser trailer that was made, you know, before they had a director on the film, and so that played with Nightmare 5. And so when the movie when Leatherface actually came out in early 1990, January 1990, they never did a trailer. They never did and they never did TV spots. They just rejiggered that for a TV spot, and that was the trailer. So they never did.
Okay.
They
I
never
did not know that.
They never did make a trailer with scenes from the movie or anything else. It was bizarre.
Wow, so
I think
it was just kind of like, it was just like a one and done. Like we're not even gonna really like shoot anything. I mean, because usually they rework some kind of TV spot, but they were probably like, no, that's good.
Right? No. Even I mean, often maybe the trailer would be the same, but they would be TV spots with clips, you know, little bits from the movie or whatever. And the TV spot
30
was
seconds or whatever.
Was just a shortened version of the theatrical trailer, of the teaser trailer. So it was bizarre, but I think at that point they just wanted to spend as little money as possible on everything. So they really,
because marketing is like expensive, I'm sure, with like
they really didn't go out of their way to promote it really that much. But
no, man, that's cool.
You can go on my website, which is jeffburr.com. There's nothing on it yet; it's kind of a holding pattern, but my email is on there. So. Okay. If there's any questions you have, anything, you can look me up on IMDb and see those stuff I've done. But if I can answer any questions for you or encourage you in any way, just let me know.
No, I really appreciate that, man. It was
hard it is to get started, and especially now.
No, I really appreciate that, and it's great to hear it from a filmmaker such as yourself, who like you've done the grind, and you've like, you're a film school student, and that's always great to hear that, especially coming from, you know, it's like, it's one of those things where I always enjoy seeing pieces of how, you know, everything was either made or maybe pieced together through relationships with like meeting people, like how, you know,
well, here's the thing. Get my email, send me an email, and I will send you something that will further educate you on that you will get a huge kick out of.
Absolutely, I will definitely do that, man. I will take you up on that offer. That's awesome.
All right, man.
Thank you so much.
The main thing, just keep plugging away, and just keep being creative. It's the ABC rule: always be creative.
I like that. That's yeah, man, and I'll send you some stuff too. Like once I get some more stuff done, or you know, I can always show you some video links and whatnot.
Okay, man. Here's already again to say goodbye.
All right, man. Thank you. Thanks for the cameo.
Yeah. Did that catch you off guard, Anthony?
That was like, wow, that was awesome, man. I was like, really, he's there, right across from you. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. You guys are still like close friends and hanging out, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Yeah, I actually, like he said, I was down here for an event and just decided to stay a few days and hang out with my buddy.
There you go, man. Yeah, lifelong friends. Look at that.
Yep.
But yeah, dude, I thank you so much. Like, thank you so much for the time, and just being nice and humble and being able to talk to me about all the stuff that you've experienced, because that's the main thing. I try to make the interviews a little bit more different, you know, than asking the generic like questions, you know, just trying to get more involved in you know, people that I grew up watching. So thank you so much for the time, and I really appreciate it, man. And if you have if there's another time we can have you on, if you know, come up with that movie idea, or if there's anything else that you ever want to you know, plug and jump on, we'll have the listeners be able to chug away at it, because I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to see if you do anything else.
Yeah, no, maybe when Ride Hard, Live Free gets finished, we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so anytime, just we'll keep in touch, though, all of us. So that'll be really cool. But thank you so much, all right, for the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Anthony, thank you for inviting me to be on the show. I think I don't know about you, but I had a blast.
Yeah, I had a blast, man. This is definitely one to remember. Thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch, man. You have a good one.
All right, you have one as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.